All right. We are going live here shortly. For those joining us via Zoom, you should be seeing my screen. This says Facility Study Update, May 3rd, 2021. Anyone in Zoom land, can you verify who you're live? I believe we are, though. My screen says so. So that being said, thank you tonight for arriving. We do have several board members that are joining us via Zoom. Alan Sauter is joining us via Zoom. Eric Clickinger is joining us via Zoom, and Derek Bolton is joining us via Zoom. And of course, we have our board vice president, Jeff Kinshu, board president, Ed Groff, and Mike Buckley, a board member also. This is Anthony Colstock. He's from Crabtree and Cornwall, and they've been partnering with us on our feasibility study. And so tonight and every month for our study session, Anthony will be here presenting. So I'm going to turn it over to Anthony to present. You have the PowerPoint I sent you today. It's the same one on the television screen. It's the same one on the live stream that everyone else has, and it's also in the handout.
Thanks, Dr. Is it okay if I sit here or do you want me to stand?
No, you may sit there. Yep.
So thank you for having me. My name is Anthony Colstock. I'm a principal with Crabtree Rural and Associates, and also senior project manager. As Dr. Rudisill mentioned, this will be the first monthly update that we'll be giving you on the district-wide feasibility study. So just to go over the agenda for the presentation tonight, want to give you an introduction of our firm. This is the first time that we're working with you. And then we're going to just do an overview of the study. We don't have any of the data that we're going to present right now, but just want to review with you what the expectations should be for the study content and how you're going to be part of the process and what type of meetings and data that we'll be talking with the administration and what we're going to be working on. So we'll also look at some of the next steps and the schedule like moving forward. So just to give you an overview of our firm, we're located in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. We have roughly about 70 employees. We do have 3 other offices in the Mid-Atlantic region. We're the largest K-12 design firm in the state of Pennsylvania. But as I mentioned, we are only 45 minutes, if that, away. So we're right off of 15, and we're the turnpike exit. So in addition to K-12 experience, we also have a lot of experience in healthcare, retail, and higher education. We like to have we pride ourselves on having a motto of a client-oriented approach. So this study isn't going to be just a canned study. This is for you, and you're going to partake in the development of the study as well. So in the past 10 years, we've done roughly 200 studies. Of those studies, a lot of them have turned into actual projects. We've been able to assist our clients in securing roughly $23 million in grant money from various sources, and also been able to help clients receive LEED certification. And one other thing that we're very proud of is that in 1997, the Pennsylvania Department of Education started tracking the lowest cost per square foot new schools in the state of Pennsylvania, referred to as the report search. And since 1997, there have been a lot of years that we have had the lowest, or sometimes the lowest and the second to lowest cost per square foot new construction school in the state. So we feel that we can provide a very cost-effective design that other architects cannot provide. So I mentioned that we're 45 minutes away. We have worked with all of your neighboring school districts. And I personally have worked with the majority of neighboring school districts and or the superintendents of those districts. So just wanted to go over some of the projects and also the districts that we've worked with. We worked with Gettysburg Area School District and their new middle school, worked with Hanover Public School District. Most recent project was their new stadium. Littlestown, most recent project we did with them was Halloween Creek and their stadium as well. Spring Grove did their new high school, which is about 12 years ago. Upper Adams currently is doing some projects at Upper Adams. Some of them are in construction. Southwestern School District just recently did a renovation to the middle school. For the new Bermudian Springs Middle School, we're working with that district right now. That project is in construction. And then finally, the new Dover Area High School, which is wrapping up construction, and we've been working with Dover for over 10 years. So we got you surrounded. So just want to go over the purpose of the study. And if you've been on the board long enough, you've had other district-wide feasibility studies done before. I think the last one was done in 2009. So we just want to review what is the purpose of the study. The purpose of the study is to help you meet specific needs or goals that you're trying to achieve. So what does that mean? We're looking at short and long-term facility planning. We're also looking at, philosophically, if you want to push your educational vision and program. What does your projected enrollment look like in the next 10 years? So we're going to be looking at that, the enrollment studies that you have done. We also want you to use this study to develop capital improvement projects, whether they're short-term or long-term. And really, this is just a guide for you to make decisions on future improvements. The last thing I want to add, the reason why you do this study is if the reimbursement for plan costs, the moratorium happens to be lifted, if you do move forward with a project, to be eligible for plan kind of reimbursement, you have to have a recent district-wide feasibility study. So we want to make sure that we meet all the Department of Ed requirements, and that if the moratorium is lifted and reimbursement is available, then that study, that's the first step in getting your project into a field. So what are those study requirements the Department of Education requires? You can just go ahead and start off. So there's basically 6 chapters that the Department of Education requires. The first one is very basic district overview. The next one is an educational program overview and your educational philosophy. Also, as I mentioned, looking at your projected enrollment within 10 years. But we would recommend that you plan for 20 years. And the reason why with plan kind of reimbursement, that is given, that reimbursement is given to you back in a 20-year period. After we look at the projected enrollment, we want to compare that enrollment to your existing facilities capacity. So we want to have an understanding, are your buildings overcrowded or are they underutilized? So you're planning for that projected enrollment. We also want to look at the existing conditions of your current facilities and help you with noting any deficiencies and any recommendations that you would need to make to bring it up to current construction standards. And then if you decide to embark on any future improvements, whether it's additions or renovations or new construction, we would put options together for you. And those options would also include cost estimates as well as schedule construction. And then the pros and cons of each of those options to help you with your the other things that will be part of the study, and this is not part of the Department of Education requirement, but guiding principles that is established by the administration and the board that serve as guidelines to your facility needs, to your educational program needs. So it establishes a criteria on how you do your decision making. So the administration has already started to develop these guiding principles. And a lot of them are broad blanket statements on what the facilities, how they operate, how they serve the students, and how they're shared with the community, what those facilities will look like. And you can see we've already started to have to share some of the narratives and look at the narratives of what those guiding principles will be. But by establishing these guiding principles and this criteria, it's going to help you prioritize what some of those needs and goals are. And we want to make sure that anytime we put an option together, it's meeting these guiding principles. Otherwise, we'll just end up having paralysis by analysis and almost too many options. So we can really focus in on several options, several good options for your long-term plan. Give you an example, like one that will always come up is your budget. If you have a set budget and we start to develop options, we want to make sure that any options that we put are within your financial means. Another one may be educational program equity. So let's say you have two elementary schools and one has a cafeteria and a gymnasium, but the other school just has a multi-purpose room. So when we would develop an option for that school that just has a multi-purpose room, we would make sure that included in the design a separate gym and a separate cafeteria, so it's equitable with the other elements. So just to go over a little bit more detail of the contents of the study, and go back to some of those chapters that I had that were outlined in the PDE requirements. So the first one is your educational program overview. You want to make sure that you are planning for future educational program improvements, and what's that vision look like compared to your current educational program? What's the structure of your grade alignment within your school? Is there a philosophical change that you feel certain grade groupings need to be in the same facility and not necessarily grouped with other grade groups? We also want to identify what some of the deficiencies in your educational program, that if principals indicate to us, our music department at this school, we're lacking in space. Then we make sure that when we're noting the deficiencies and we're looking at future options that we're going to develop, well, then we're going to include that additional space that you would need for those particular departments. And then also, if educationally you're moving into more 21st century learning spaces, that are more flexible and collaborative spaces, that we also plan for that additional square footage that your facilities would need to meet that educational program. So we're also going to look at your projected enrollment. We do have on staff an educational planner, Dr. Witham, who's part of the team. He's a retired superintendent. He is now our director of educational planning. We're going to look at enrollment projections from three sources. We've already had enrollment projections done by Decision Insight. The Department of Education, every year they provide enrollment projections as well. Crabtree and Groball, we will also be putting enrollment projections together based on historical data and trends. And it's important to compare all three of these enrollment projections to find a line of best fit so the board can establish a planning number for future growth. And we may just say, well, we may go with Decision Insight, or maybe we go with Department of Education, but it's important that we know what that 10-year number is, so that all the options that we would put together, we're planning for a specific number of enrollment within that time. Once we have the enrollment, what we like to do is then compare it to the capacity of your existing facility. We've already been meeting with principals to understand what the current use of spaces are. And once that's done, then we will establish a building capacity. And that's important to do an analysis to understand if your buildings are overcrowded or if they're underutilized. And not just for your current enrollment, but also that 10-year enrollment. So then we understand if maybe a certain facility would need additions to it, or maybe everything is done within the existing footprint. So what we'll do is we'll establish what's called utilization rate, which is a percentage of the enrollment to the building capacity to target what is a comfortable number of students within the building based upon the capacity to help the administration with their schedule. For an elementary school, students are in the classroom, in one classroom most of the day. But when you have a middle school and a high school, the students are changing from classroom from period to period. Understanding what that utilization is can be a little tricky. The target number is usually 80% for middle school and high school and secondary. And then for primary, it's usually 90%. Those graphs I have over on the right-hand side, that's just an example of showing the utilization of the building capacity compared to the student enrollment. So that's something that we'll look at once we've established planning number for your projection. So the other thing that we'll do is we'll do a tour with not just architecturally, but also with our consultants. We're going to have the mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers that are going to assist us with the study, also a civil engineer. We will do evaluations of the existing facilities. We have the first round of evaluations scheduled for next week. We will then, once school is over, we'll start to hit those evaluations a little harder when the buildings open up for summer break. So we'll do this evaluation and document the existing conditions. And then we're going to note what are existing system deficiencies. So your HVAC units, so the boilers nearing the end of their life cycle, your interior finishes, windows, roof, carpet. When would we make a recommendation on when those should be replaced? And along with those recommendations, we'll also put together cost estimates to upgrade and maintain your facility to current construction standards. We're also going to look at HVAC operational savings. We'll also look at code compliance of the existing building. And we'll work that into our recommendations. And this is what you can use potentially to help outline future capital improvement projects. But in the event that you find that one of the facilities needs additional care because of the projected enrollment, we'll also work in some of these recommendations into one of those options that outlines that addition at that particular school. When we put the cost together for these facility conditions, these are cost estimates that are based on recent bids that our firm and More Engineering, which is the MEC consultant, recent bids that we have done. These, again, will only be status quo improvements. This does not take into consideration educational program improvements. That will come come when we develop the options and if additions had to be included or extensive renovations to your facility. But what this will also do, what this documentation will do is help you develop an order of magnitude on which project should be done first. Because if there's something that is critical, that if it was to fail and cause a disruption in educational instruction, we would recommend that you address that before some of the other items that you can have more of a reaction to rather than being proactive with those capital improvement projects. And then finally, as I mentioned, we'll put options together. When you have the guiding principles established for any future project, along with that projected enrollment and the planning number, and then once we also understand what facility needs are for your existing schools, we'll put options together. These options will look at new construction, we'll look at additions and renovations, we'll have costs that we'll put together, and you can use this as a decision-making tool, whether it's short-term or long-term, and then potentially, then you would move into a project. And then the last slide, just to kind of give you an overview of what we'll present to you in the next several months. So in June, what we would like to do is the update will focus a little bit more on the projected enrollment and the comparisons of the different studies that have been done. You don't have a meeting in July. We'll come back in August and we'll be able to show you the utilization rate for your existing facilities. Again, that's going to be looking at if your buildings are underutilized or if they're overcrowded. Then in September, we will come with the facility assessments and the recommendations. We'll probably be at some point, maybe in August, we'll go over some of the facility deficiencies that we noted. But then in September, we come with the full assessments and the recommendations. And then in October, we'll start the option development. So I know that was a lot of information. And again, we're going to be hitting on all of these in a lot more detail in the future months. So if you have any questions that I can answer, more than happy.
Having it right now, I'm sure as the process goes along, there's going to be a lot of questions. Right, you've heard them all, so you know really how to address what you're doing. And of course, on the board up at the Gettysburg KFC, the technical school, and the gentleman on the board up there said that the moving from project is actually ahead of schedule. So look forward to that.
Yeah, that was actually that project that was so cool. Can't take credit for how fast the contractors are going. They're really moving at a remarkable speed. That project is set to open in November or December. That's a project that we're very proud of, and we're really grateful for our relationship with that district. And that's our second project that we've worked on with them, and we have one more that's lined up with them. So thank you. I did appreciate that.
We need the same process here. It seems like everywhere we look, everything changes. So we'll be looking forward to whatever we're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Colstock. Really appreciate your time this evening. I know we meet, I believe, next week, next Thursday.
Yep, we're meeting next week with the middle school and high school principals
Yep.
for the second time.
thank you, and we look forward to each month. And we'll
Yeah.
make sure that we're ready to move forward.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Perry. And Dr. Perry, for the record, then, Mr. Huffman, Bill Huffman joined us. He's in the meeting now also. Thank you,
Thank you.
sir.
Have a good evening.
All right. So a lot going on. Obviously, we've met several times with Crabtree and Robo. Something that we'll do as a board here is, and within the next week or so, I'll share the guiding principles document with the school board so that you guys can review the guiding principles that Dr. Perry and I put together. In addition, after our next meeting, I believe I'm going to get updated numbers from Crabtree and Robo, and I'll share those with you so you can see PDE, Crabtree, Decision Insight, and that what they call that best fit number. And then we as a board can decide what numbers we want to use for planning purposes. That will help them move forward also. Okay? Any other questions?
One slide there, how come PDU is so out of whack from all the other?
PDE just keeps it constant. If you notice, their number didn't really change that much. What the Crabtree one and Decision Insight, that was showing that without the additional housing that may or may not occur. They can also put numbers in there that show housing and what that number may be also. So what they showed right there was what our enrollment would be if we didn't have the 15 developments happen. And what PDEP doesn't take any of that into account. They just kind of go across the numbers based on what we have and what the state shows. So
They don't bring the details.
no, the detail will come from Decision Insight and Crabtree and Mobile. Theirs will be much more driven by potential growth. Yes. Yep. What we're going to do right now is we'll go look at finance. Obviously, number one, we'll pay the bills as necessary. Number two will be the monthly reimbursement voucher. Number three is the recommendation to increase the stipend for substitute teachers to be set at $115 per day for the 2021-2022 school year. This is across Adams County. This is all Adams County schools. We're going to raise the rate to $115. That's an increase of $10 a day per substitute. Part of that was, look, we need to become a little bit more competitive with York County and what they're offering for substitutes. There are districts in York County that pay $125 to $135, even up to $150 a day for a daily substitute. So we share many of those substitutes. And of course, Southwestern and a lot of those schools fall in the York County side. So we're competing for those schools. So we need to try to raise what we do a little bit to attract more substitutes. This year has been a challenge. So we're hoping that the additional pay will help get us back to somewhat of a normal bill rate of our substitutes. Want to recommend the acceptance of contract for Conewago, Ernst, Smizer, and Berg, certified public accountants who conduct their annual audit of financial records of the district as required by the Department of Education for the fee of $12,800. Want to recommend the authorization of the homestead and farmstead exclusion real estate tax assessment reductions for qualified properties within the Conewago Valley School District for the school year beginning July 1st, 2021, under the provision of the Homestead Property Exclusion Program Act, Act 50 of 1998, and the Taxpayer Relief Act, Act 1 of 2006. Number 6, want to recommend the board adopt the final 2021-2022 general fund budget as it was duly advertised and held open to inspection and was tentatively approved by the board at its meeting of April 5th, 2021. Showing expenditures and estimated resources of the same amount of $70,204,518 to appropriate resources as shown on the budget, and levy taxes necessary to raise with local revenue anticipated in the budget by adopting the formal tax resolution presented herewith and be attached to the minutes, which in summary provide for a 1% levy of all wages and current earned income and net profits of each resident in said school district, 0.5% realty transfer tax, $5 per capita tax under section 679, 5% amusement tax, 14.1993 mil real estate tax, and $10 or $52 Emergency and Municipal Tax Service Act, Act 55. So what we presented to you, I shared to you last week, a final budget proposal. And we as a district are looking to do just a 2% tax increase versus the index of 4%. Are there any questions? We do have Mrs. Duncan on the line. Any other further questions in regards to the final proposal of budget, or anything that wasn't answered in the documents that you might need clarification on? While we have Mrs. Duncan here, she is recovering from her, I believe, either her first or second shot of her vaccine. So she might have had a few shots with that to ease it. But either way, she is live with us. So if you have any questions, please free do so. I will just say though, before any questions are asked, I just want to thank Mrs. Duncan again for this budget process. She was amazing as always, but this year especially, for her to work this budget out. That the fact is our expenditures and our revenue are equal out to zero, and we're balanced, is just a testament to what her and the department do on a daily basis for this district. And I can't thank her enough.
Got to be distinguished on record. We do a lot of it. And this is time the superintendent was making the presentation. So she did a fine job.
She's the expert. I'm not, and I know when to defer to the expert.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all the support from the board. I think as a whole organization, we're moving forward and we're doing such a good job for the community, and also being very fiscally responsible. So I appreciate the support of the board. And I'm recovering from the second shot.
I knew it was one of them.
Yeah, the second one.
There was a lot of good information.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Duncan.
All right, thank you.
You're not feeling well. Yep. So if you need to go lay down, please do so and take care of yourself.
All right, thank you very much.
Be at work.
All right, thank you.
And number 7, recommend that the secretary business manager be authorized to make such minor changes to function categories and line items for the 2020-21 general fund budget as may be necessary at any time prior to the filing of the annual financial report to avoid over expenditure, provided the additions equal the subtractions so as not to exceed the established gross and approved expenditure for the 2020-2021 school term, subject to ratification by the board. So basically, make sure that we pay all bills and we don't exceed what we have planned for the 2020-21 school year. Ways and means. Bring in front of the board here tonight that we recommend approval following days to be changed on the 2020-21 district calendar from full day instruction to early dismissal. Grades K through 6 early dismissal, the last day of school, Friday, May 28th, 1:30 early dismissal K through 6. And this is something we've always done in the past to kind of keep pace with that. And grades 7 through 12, due to the hybrid schedule that they're in, that we do an early dismissal on Thursday, May 27th for all our day A students. And then we follow that same procedure for our day B students on Friday, May 28th. And then both of those early dismissals will be 12:30. Recommend approval of the memorandum of understanding between the Conewago Valley School District and the Conewago Valley Education Association. This was dated back to April 12th. We've already kind of signed off on everything. It was my mistake. I forgot to add it to the agenda for official board approval. So we're going to go back and make sure that we board approve what we've already signed off on to make sure everything's official. Also, ways and means, recommend authorizing Bobby Biken to attend Elements of Human Resource course sponsored by PASBO between May 10th and June 4th and held online, with all necessary expenses to be paid or reimbursed by the district not to exceed $185. So as we look for opportunities for all of our district office employees, Act 93 employees and others to further their education and their expertise, this is one way we can do that without going through a college course. It's more hands-on practical. She starts to assist and do more in the human resource department with Mr. Lovejoy. Number 4, we're going to ask the board to approve a transfer of positions. Later on in personnel, you'll see a resignation do with this position. That's currently an assistant principal at the elementary schools in New Oxford and Conewago. We'd like to change it to New Oxford High School principal of the Colonial Career and Technology Center, so that we have a person full-time dedicated to our Career and Technical Center to help move forward with PDE approved programs, working with the community and local businesses and manufacturers to help, I guess, develop a plan to sustain what we have already started, so that we, in a couple of years, when we're like, okay, what's next, we have that plan in place. It has become a full-time job just in itself, trying to maintain the facility, along with making sure that we're constantly moving forward and giving stuff to and presenting options and opportunities for our students through PDE. Dr. Perry will help obviously work with that person and mentor them as much as she can, while still maintaining her job duties also. Any questions in regards to that Career and Technology Center position and switching that over?
For the transfer position across
Salary wise, it actually probably won't be that big a salary. I can't talk salary, but when we go to personnel, I'll be able to answer that a little bit more in regards to salary and what we may or may not lose or gain, or so forth. But overall, in the end, it will be a wash. It will not. Yes. Gotcha. Yes. No, it will be a wash till it's all said and done. And a lot of that will depend on obviously who we hire and what kind of next steps we have from there. Property and supplies. Going to recommend approval for the Bulldog Baseball Club with Jeremy Fry as representative to use New Oxford High School baseball field on select days and times approved by the athletic department, Mr. Worley, from June 1st, 2021 through July 16th, 2021 for baseball practice, and games, with charges listed in board policy 707, with the provision of proof of insurance as per board policy for the services of custodians, security, cooks, and/or technical personnel as needed. The Bulldog organization, this would be their 13U and 14U groups, I believe. We have several of our local high school students that play on that travel baseball team. Yep. Yes, that's the same organization. Yep. This is their 8th graders, 7th and 8th graders. Yes, you got it. Recommend approval for the tennis for kids with Cindy Friedrich as representative to use the New Oxford High School tennis courts on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 9 to 11, from June 15th to July 15th for tennis for kids. Charges listed below. There was another request put in that I did not put on for approval, but I wanted to bring up for discussion tonight. Most of our requests that we've been getting for facility usage has been outside. We have our first for indoor. And so I'd like to just discuss that a little bit. Our Conewago Valley Youth Basketball Association would like to use the CVIS gym 2 days a week. I apologize if you looked up the exact dates so that I have it accurate. They would like to begin the second week of June and go every Tuesday, Thursday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays at CVIS. I will be fully, I've been transparent from day one with everything. I'll be transparent with this. I don't know if I'm in favor of an indoor activity that takes up cleaning time and getting our schools prepared every Tuesday and Thursday, because there's going to be a point where our gyms are going to have to be stripped, re-waxed as part of that process. So that's a long time, June 2nd through August. The second week of June to the second week of August. Most of the stuff that you've seen has been about a month requirement. I'd be willing, if the board wants this to go back and, see if they're willing to do less of a time or more of a time, or if the board's okay with the recommendation, I'll add it as an additional item for next week for approval.
Why not find out when the floor is vacant?
Well,
Say, okay, up to that point, you can use it.
after that,
Once the floor is done, she can go, we have to get rid of the school, and at least it gives them some time, maybe not as much as they would like, but, I think frankly, we're losing the floor.
all right. So I will work with Aramark as far as what, they're just now beginning their summer process schedule. I'll work with them to see when they might be doing that. And we'll go from there. But usually, Yep. So, but yeah, we'll look into that and see what it's about. It's just an open gym. That's all it is. No games. It's just kids come and they get to play. I'm sure there's always that risk of exceeding indoor capacity depending on the amount of kids they have coming. I don't know. And again, there's not much detail in the email. This is for 3 hours, so I don't know if they plan on bringing different age groups in from 8 to 11. I'll look at that also. Capacity, right now it's 25%. So it'd be youth, so anywhere from grades probably K through 6. Yes, that's correct. So I'll get more detail from Mr. Worley, and I'll start that tomorrow, and I'll present more information to you next Monday night at the board. Okay. All right. Assistant Superintendent report, Dr. Perry.
All right, good evening. So coming to you next week for the recess that we're waiting for next year. So it would be the requested field trips and conference requests for next year. Of course, we don't know what that would bring, but we did hear earlier this evening about the Untitled Chapter.
Sorry to interrupt, but I can't hear you. I don't know if everybody else can. It's zooming or not, but I cannot hear her.
Okay.
Okay, is that better, Bill?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
I'm gonna have to unmask that.
So just unmasked. Okay, very good.
So, the field trips and conference requests will be coming for your approval next week at the May 11th board meeting. We are requesting that they be approved in the event that we would be able to participate in these events as they are important to the educational process and the full experience of our students. We heard earlier this evening from our music students, they've not had the opportunity to go to any of their competitions or any of the events that they would normally be able to participate in. So those three coming for your approval. Finally, I wanted to talk briefly about a curriculum review cycle. So I remember when I was interviewing for this position, I had asked the question, what is the number one priority for if I were the successful candidate to step into the role? Mr. Brock said it was the curriculum, and that we needed to make market improvements and organize our curriculum. And so with that and working with our curriculum cabinet, we've developed a curriculum review cycle, which would be a 4-year process. And initially it would be ELA, the English Language Arts. We would begin in a research phase for year 1. So what we would do is we would compile a committee of representatives, K-12. This would be a K-12 process where we would spend a year researching best practices in English Language Arts. Then the following year, we would be looking at writing curriculum, developing units, aligning standards, looking at resources. So that would be year 2. And while I start year 2 with English Language Arts, we would be conducting a research year with mathematics, for example. So these would be a rolling curriculum review cycle where we would eventually roll in all of our departments K-12. The third year would be the implementation year. So this is where we put our house this in such a way that anybody at any time can access the curriculum. And the unit plans, the standards that are taught, et cetera, which I'll often receive questions about what's taught in third grade math, for example. So to be able to refer new teachers to the curriculum, to provide them an actual board-approved, viable curriculum, I think that's critically important. And then finally, the fourth year is its deep dive data analysis. So we look at the data that we've collected over the years to see how our curriculum is doing based on student achievement measures. So we would definitely have that data piece, and then we would roll back into a research year the following year. So as I mentioned, each of the departments would work collaboratively with K-12. As it's important that we remember that children have a 13-year journey with us. And so we want to make sure that the continuity of the educational program is such that it's a smooth one. So we're not repeating information unless it's intentional. And so I think that's going to be an opportunity that will be one that will be met with a lot of excitement because they'll be able to collaborate with departmental colleagues. K-12 will have an awareness of what's to come beyond and what comes before, so that they know how adequately plan and prepare. So curriculum cabinet and the principals, as well as Dr. Ridgestone and myself, are excited to see this cycle move forward. And so, as I mentioned, we would start next year with English language.
And then I'll look at some curriculum K through 12, but then also as we start to plan out into the CPTC and now English for the gifted programs. That's really
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot. And we're noticing that right now. It's one of the fortunes that came through your approvals for technical English, for example. Those conversations are already happening about where are those natural places that we can integrate. I expect, I've already been approached social studies wants to be involved, just to be sort of a fly on the wall with English, to see what are the conversations that are coming up. There's a lot of crossover between English and social studies. So that's something that I think we can also take a closer look at as well. Math and science have a lot of natural crossover, so there's a lot of potential for development in that. But yes, absolutely. And even now at the high school and CCTC, they're talking with the science coordinator and math coordinator. So we're looking creatively at schedules to see if teachers participate and serve what's happening so that they could have real life examples of what they're watching, how they're seeing children use math, use science, and use the language arts within the CCTC. So more to come on that. We couldn't be happier. It's a lot of work, but it's a great process. So that will be something after that first year that would come to you for approval to approve those units. And the standards alignment, that would be the work of the first year, come to you for approval, and then after your approval, we would move to writing.
Maybe you have some data together with the appropriate to see just how we compare those. Are we, ahead of them and us? Are they using something we could use, or can we do the same for them?
Oh yeah, we'll be the standard.
Okay. I'm like,
No, I think,
I have no doubt that you're going to make this work. That sometimes we, I keep hearing what happens in Virginia because of when the grants are not school, the daughter was a teacher down there. Hey, I'll tell you what, they're so far behind the 8 ball that these kids, when they do leave that school, are they going to be able to make it in comparison to maybe what the students come out of this school are going to be able to do? And I think like the music tonight is proof of just how well our students actually get everything that they want around. And so I'm just asking if at some point we can compare to see if we are in fact doing better.
Yeah, I think, we have to prioritize what we want to prioritize. Just like we're doing as part of our feasibility study, we need to come up with our guiding principles. for me personally, I believe that we should be led by the standards, that these are standards that we set forth in all of our content areas. And some of them are tested, there are state testing. And while that's all important to drive our curriculum, on the other side of that is what is a priority for use of technology and the ability for children to be creative and to show us what they know in other ways that a state system just can't measure. So the curriculum, our curriculum, will be written with that in mind. It's a district priority and goal, and it's a guiding principle for that process that we would integrate technology. There's been a significant investment in that. And so the expectation would be to do an inventory of what it is that we're using. And as part of that research, we would have conversations around, are they the best tools for us to use as we move forward in the curriculum to help us better align our purchasing and the use of these applications within the classroom. Again, keeping that journey of the child in mind. How can we streamline this process for them? So that will be something that will be very different for us than another school district. But
And
it's
also
really
it helps in your parenting process, because now the teachers.
That's right. Right. And so that's why that data portion is really important. So if we use data as part of our hiring process and guiding principles like that, it's going to help us look for those teachers that we need with this curriculum that we hope to develop. So it is a collaborative process. So that is a priority also, is that when we build something together, it's much better than when we build something in isolation. So it will be professional learning for that committee as well. So it's an opportunity for professional staff to come together in time and reflection of what they're doing, why they're doing it, what's driving it, are they utilizing standards, what data are they collecting on children's achievement levels, what data should they be collecting to measure student achievement levels? Are there assessments actually measuring that standard? There's a lot of work that goes into curriculum development in order for it to do that. But I do feel confident that we have a strong faculty and staff that who are willing to participate in this, and could be more excited to start that process.
I think it's good to see how we can pair the two, but also keep the end result. So you've got kids that go to college, you've got kids that go to technical, you've got kids that go to what do they think our customers like? Person, how they set up person's test, or do it or now we have to do this. I mean, even as kids progress through the buildings, right? Are they happy that they're getting kids from CPE and oh great, or they all know them from Kennewago,
Yes, absolutely. And that perceptual data will provide a lot of our work as part of our comprehensive planning process. Also, that's electronic data. That's going to be really important. Again, that will drive.
Thank you, Dr. Perry. Obviously, I took my superintendent report tonight, and that was the general fund, the budget, and also Crabtree and Little took my time. So I just have some FYIs for everybody. This week is Teacher Appreciation Week, and so I just want to say today we were very thankful. UTS sent out a special coupon for all our teachers to get, I guess, some free, not free, but 20% off, I believe, their order from the UTS, I believe, and some other things. So very, very generous of UTS, and we thank them for that. Tomorrow, I believe it's tomorrow, the district will be providing breakfast for all our teachers, and then just some other stuff throughout the week as different things arrive for us. We'll be sharing them with our teachers and just thanking them for everything they've done this year. Really can't. The way they were able to adapt and move on and still educate, I think we've done a great job this year. I really do. Also, just an FYI, I will be sending out a parent survey June 7th through the 11th. I'll share it with the board ahead of time so that you can see it next week. But basically, it's just asking return to instruction. Here are Conewago Valley School District's options for next year. And we have 4 options that we'll be presenting to parents. One will be our own online academy, K through 12, to hopefully ask students to give our remote learning a chance compared to the outside agency cyber charter schools. Because I think what you'll find is a better product. And if for whatever reason you want to come back to school, you won't miss a beat because it's our curriculum, it's our teachers, and it really makes a difference. I know the feedback we've been getting from parents this year that have done CVOA has been very positive, and they really like the fact that if kids had to come in to do anything, they didn't lose anything, they were ready to go. So we'll present that next week to the board so that you can look at it, and if you have any questions before we send it out. My goal is to send it out the week of June 7th through the 11th and get those results back, and that will help move us forward to what we are going to do for the 2021-2022 school year, pending any other guidance from the state, which will probably come in late August for school starts in timely fashion, like PE does. Okay. All right. With that being said, I'm going to stop the live stream, and we're going to move into executive session. So oh.
Questions out there before you.
Yeah, last I checked on the public, there was nobody had anything that they were asking at this time. Nothing. Yep, absolutely. Thank you for that reminder. So at this time, I thank everyone for joining us tonight, and we're going to go into executive session to talk personnel.